Should be live. I'm gonna make sure that everything starts. It's so weird that it shows up faster for other accounts than the one I'm actually like signed in on. Like the TrueDFS one, it takes me like 15 seconds to show that I'm live. Whereas if I'm on anything else, it'll be like, oh yeah, here you are, you're live. How you guys doing? You can hear me because I heard myself there. I think, man, I don't know why I was in such a pissy mood yesterday, man. Let me get this tweeted out, and then we can start talking about stuff. And I want to go over specifically why I'm so jaded at this track, man. This first and foremost. This is my worst track in DFS. I'm honestly mad we're racing it twice again. I have just been horrendous at Bristol. It's been a fucking disaster. Love 1.5s, 5 row courses. Don't like other short tracks, but like Bristol, I literally cannot do any worse than I've been doing. And we'll go over that here, and it'll kind of circle back around of how I'm doing today. Let me just get this out. Good. Just put. If you guys have anything that you want to look at specifically, whether it be practice or anything like that, please let me know, and we will do that together. What's going on, Kay? What's going on, Nick? See everybody in here. Let me just tweet this out, and then we'll be good to go. So before we jump, let me make sure this goes to this. Okay, yeah. So before we jump into talking about today, when we look back at the last 2 races, because yet again, I personally, regardless of what track it is, not going to look at old generation stuff. When we look back at the last 2 races that we have ran here, because I mean, for the last 3 years, we've only done one. We've done the September race. But when we look at these races, it's really 2 drastically different events, especially in terms of lap leaders. And we can sort this by. I just want to focus right now and emphasize this on starting position and how volatile it's been for a lot of people. And so when we look back at the race in 2022, and we look back at where the top starters ended up finishing, I mean, this is pretty rough. This is pretty rough. When we look back at Old Bristol, if you look back at the other, I guess we could do that as well to try and emphasize why this is so difficult. And I truly believe that Bristol is the most difficult track to build DFS lineups for. I think it is. I think it is the hardest. Let me go ahead and move this here, and we'll look at. Also, my internet has been like terrible last like 3 days. We'll just look back at the last couple races before this next generation car. So that'll be Solar Race. We'll look at these from COVID here. We'll even go back to 2019. And when we look at how this ends up going, you see that we would typically have more people who start in the top 10, at least maintain a running position, at least try and finish there, we do have, guys coming from the back of the field, but it wasn't nearly as like, just genocidal as we would just wipe out guys who started in the top 10. And specifically when you look at, I mean, like this is also that, but like the pole sitters, or at least guys who like had faster cars, were able to survive and not get caught up in crashes, or they crash racing like for the lead and stuff. Go back to 2019. I mean, it's just like, yeah, you see guys running into issues. Like you see Tricks, finish lap down when it goes green. See, like this race basically just has a huge run to the end, and basically just laps everybody up to like 13th and stuff. But for the most part, if you had a fast car, you could be up there. You would be able to have a chance to lead laps. You'd have a chance to be able to get laps led and stuff. And yet again, we're just looking at starting positions here. We're not technically focusing on where they finished at this point. We're looking at starting position relative to likelihood of you leading laps, where that goes, looking back at the old time and stuff. And even situations like this, like here's a situation where somebody leads and they're just taken out and those points don't even matter and exist anymore, where it's been spread out in the past. Whereas you look at the last 2 races here in this car, we see that whether it be due to qualifying and the way they're doing it with the groups, whether it be the track conditions of different like not even like different qualifying sessions and stuff, But like we're seeing more guys that would technically like take over like super late in the race. And I think a big portion of this is because of the traction compound and how it changes in the race and allows people to get um, to the lead and stuff. Like Jesus Christ, like bro, I mean LaJoy stayed out, he's able to lead laps and stuff in this race. Like that's insane. Anyway, so like these are these last two races, and we'll get to today in a second. And for me, let's go ahead and bring up my last two events here. Be these two. Let me hide this. So when I look at where I have built and stuff, when we look at the race, and I'm kind of bringing this up because we have Josh Berry, we have some less than beautiful looking plays today. You have Berry, you have Briscoe, you have McDowell in the top 10, and then your favorites are clearly to lead laps: Blaney, Hamlin, Logano, probably Bell, Larson. You can see that like Bubba can most likely work in a lot of situations as long as he doesn't run into an issue. But like for the most part, I don't think I've been incredibly crazy here. Okay. The fact that like 2 years ago, I wanted to be overweight in Eric Almirola. The fact that he had a great pit stall selection, the fact that he had started on first, started up front. I wanted to be over the weight in the field, between Briscoe, Bowman, and Eric Almirola, your top four guys. That's who I wanted to be on. Just so happened that, he literally ran the issues, ran the mechanical issues, and, it didn't work out. And then I'm even like, man, did I even play Chris Buescher? Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I played Buescher all with my Eric Almirola lines. My only Buescher line had Bowman, who also ran to issues. So like that was a true disaster just right off the bat. So, and then like last year, yet again, when we're talking about at least how I build, like, I mean, this is like $400 in each of these. This is 20 lineups in both. These are what I ran in the Survivor, the ones highlighted in purple. But I literally played everybody but Hamlin. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Kind of like last night. Played everybody who ran in the top four all day, except Kyle Busch. And then my guys are wrecking each other. Majeski gets taken out, Sanchez gets destroyed. Regardless or not, if you're right on chalk, like I just haven't had fantastic Bristol events. Like I don't think I've made a penny on Bristol in probably fucking 4 years. And so for me today, I'm not in the mood to just burn another $400. I just don't want to do it. I'm doing 3 lineups today. That's all I'm doing. 3 and 15, 3 and 4, and 3 max. Like, I want to go watch Counter-Strike today. I want to go take a fucking nap. Like I got, in terms of TrueDFS, I got to worry about stuff, what happens tomorrow and like entering this week. Like there's just other things. Like I'm not mailing it in. I'm projecting guys the way I think they should finish. But personally for me, because I just haven't been able to fucking do anything at this track, I'm not playing at all. And so like the single entry question that opened this, at least in my opinion, was kind of where I'm at in terms of trying to figure out where I want to approach stuff. So similar to Larson coming through last year, starting last, had a fantastic car. And actually, I just closed out of them all. We could have looked at the practice data for those races as well. So 2 major things here. One, this new traction compound, in separating it from racing and fantasy. Racing is awesome. Like we're getting back to, not that we're never going to be back at Old Bristol where the bottom line's dominant. Like that's a much more fun Bristol race to watch. We're still going to we're going to move to like the middle and top being dominant in this race. Yet again, like that's why this, at least in my opinion, this is so drastically hard to predict, because like from lap like 245 to 500 can be literally track dependent. Whoever jumps up between like your top 7 runners, whoever is able to get the outside running faster, whoever is able to have the better car in the long run in the second half of the race. Like at least for me, it's so hard to predict that. But we know the bottom lane is going to be there for at least the first 100 laps. With that said, we saw the bottom lane before it was warmed up, before we had a lot of like actual running on it in the race yesterday. We saw that the like turn 4, I mean, I don't know what the fuck they did there, but practice, it fucked people over. In qualifying, it killed people's laps. In the truck race last night, it was hurting people early in the race. And so if you're looking at people who are going to be running the bottom here, And also another thing is that's really interesting is like drivers, you don't have to run the bottom here. Like when you're in practice and everybody's like, man, this thing drives like shit. Man, this car is uncomfortable. Oh, hey, here's an idea. Let's just not worry about the bottom. Like, stop trying to make the bottom work. If the car drives like shit in the bottom, let's just work in the middle and the top. Like, plan for later in the race and stuff. Um, so like everybody's truly uncomfortable in their cars right now. The practice in terms of averages, these are only counting lap. Like I didn't even bother going through in this one here just because by the way the scraper is, it's going to pull just a ton because I pull like every 4 seconds. And so there'll be times where it's just empty here. But I didn't even bother going through and removing the slower laps for visual representation. I just counted the laps over 115. And so like Casgrala literally only has like 7 of those because he's just slow as fuck. But I've already removed all the slower laps from here. But the fact that the practice sessions were so drastically different, normally I would at least, mention, oh, this guy was in Group A, this guy was in Group B in practice. I don't even think that necessarily matters. This is such a different track now, post a very long truck race, than what these guys are practicing. That's not discounting the speed that Bell, Chastain, and Blaney has, but especially when you look at that and then compare it with where they're at in terms of, runs and stuff. And yet again, we saw a lot of people in practice, run 10 laps, which is, what is that? So that's like 2.5 minutes in practice, go down pit lane, make an adjustment, go back out. And so in terms of long run speed, ideally you'd want to just start by like de facto looking at like 15 lap runs, 20 lap runs. But the fact that we only had, how many people we have actually do a 15 lap run? We only had, 18 people actually do that. Like in my opinion, I would go off of at least where people are lined up in their 10 lap ranking. That's not saying AJ Allmendinger is going to fly in lap and stuff, but like this is the most likely like data point that I would care to look at. And even then it's sketchy at best. When we look at where these guys are starting and where people had such like horrific qualifying times, I mean, we know, Chastain ran into issues, but like Bowman had issues, Suarez got loose, Stenhouse got loose, Kyle Busch got loose, and we didn't even see it. Like, what is it? Like, the camera direction is wicked wild right now for Fox, but the fact that we're here to watch racing, correct? And like Kyle leaves pit lane, we see the beginning of his first lap, and then we just stare at RCR or Richard Childress like for the entire second lap of Kyle's thing. We don't even see what happens. Harvick is screaming. He had a moment. Guys, I know you didn't see it. You're staring at old man Childress up there, but like Kyle had a moment. Like everybody was having a ton of issues in Q, and that really made like this starting grid like truly nuts. The main aspect that we need to focus on there, I'll talk about picks in a second. I'm trying to get through everything here, like everything that we need to consider at least before we even start. We understand that Chastain, we understand that Buescher is going to be fast. We truly understand that. I'm not saying that isn't the case. And for me personally, I just left Chastain at 49 points today because there's no reason for me to project him for any higher than that, because at his pricing, that price is going to get him in most lines anyway. And there's no reason to force him in with a higher projection. We have seen, and Chastain, Buescher, Dillon, Bowman, Suarez, all these guys are dependent on literally the first run and how long that goes. Because with where Chastain is starting, if the first run goes green, he's going to lap down. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Chastain might drive up to 25th and it'll be a lap down. There's a real chance, and unless we get like early yellows to help these guys out and bunch them back up and save them from the leader catching them, like going a lap down in this race is a big concern for at least probably up to 19th for a good portion of the race. And I think we'll probably see guys 2-3 laps down, probably up to like 23rd, 24th, especially in this next gen car, as we've seen more longer runs take place, especially in stage 3. Chastain is either probably going to score like 50, mid 50 points, or be a lap down, scoring right around 45, 40, 39 and stuff in this race. And so, like, what do I do there? Like, I don't have a lean if he goes lap down or if he doesn't. I'm probably going to play Chastain in my 3 lines. But, like, that's the main concern. Same thing with Busher. And especially when we're trying to chase lap leaders, you know, like I'm not playing Barry. I like just whatever, fuck it. I don't care. Like I'm not playing Barry today. Um, Blaney, Hamlin are probably the 2 most likely guys to try and trade the lead for a good portion of the race. But in terms of like potential lap leaders, it is these guys here that I would probably highlight as like your true lap leader contenders. Other people that I'd want to focus on would be these 2 guys here. So like you've seen the way that I was building previously, and either didn't land on the correct lap leader or had guys that I was overweight on run into issues or whatever the case may be. I want to prioritize trying to fit in these guys up here. Probably at least 3 of them, especially if you run Chastain. He's at 85. You can still get to a lot of decent plays that I think can actually lead races. I'm going to be frank. Like if like I personally like Reddick today. Uh, but if anybody like outside the top 13 leads, which I think we will have somebody in that range lead, I have no fucking clue who it is. Uh, it would have to be somebody taking over in probably stage 3 of somebody starting outside the top 10, and I just don't know who that is. When we look at Saber Sim, and I want to bring this up because this isn't necessarily me wanting to let me not show any builds here, but I'll show my projections and stuff here. Mainly because it's I don't know, like I said, this is my worst track, and I'm not doing anything different from how I normally build projections. Okay, so like when I look at my stuff, like I have Blaney, Hamlin, Bell, as like my higher guys, and clearly I'm factoring in laps led. But when we look specifically at where they line up 1-to-1 with like where I think a lot of the averages is going to come from today, whether it be SaberSim, Fancy Crutch, or any site that we're looking at, we're going to run into an issue to where projections are just going to have them as like memes and stuff. Whereas realistically, we're going to have people scoring probably like 130, 140, 150 and stuff. And when we compare where I'm falling in line at, like I'm in line with my highest guy being Blaney, highest guy being Hamlin, highest guy being Bell. Chastain for me is slightly lower just because I'm factoring more guys lead laps. But in terms of where Chastain falls in line, especially in terms of like our actual like projection point, like we're pretty lined up. And so at least for me, like, I don't know, it's going to sound so stupid, but like these types of projections are useless because it doesn't lean towards anybody. Everybody is super like distributed between all the outcomes they could have. My projections are probably useless because I've just been fucking wrong these last years when I try and take a stand somewhere. And so in terms of building, in terms of what I want to do, it's more so I'm going to prioritize Chastain today in my 3 lines. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to punt in all my lines as well. And it's probably going to be with Casgralla or Justin Haley, depending on who I need. If I need that $200, like though, that's literally the 2 positions that I know I'm going to land on in my builds today. And when we're looking at that, we're looking at $9,100 left over for your drivers. When we start looking at the lap leaders and you start getting really tight, like we start falling in line of very similar lineups if it is Blaney and Hamlin, because we're at $7,400 left over. And at that point, it's a bunch of 1v1s and 2v2s for lineups. The thing that I'm trying to think about of getting different is Logano, Elliott, Bell, especially when we look at the previous races and we see like an early lap leader, somebody who like killed the field in a stage, who was able to lead laps, like run into issues and just get removed from the equation in its entirety. Let's bring up the last 2 races. I probably should have kept racing reference up there, but we will go over it again. When we look at the last 2 races and look at people who led laps, who, were good plays, who were working out and then just got like demolished and just removed from a fancy aspect in these last 2 races. We're averaging around one of those lap leaders. We'll look at the last 2 here. When we look at these races, again, I apologize for the internet. It's been pretty slow, pretty horrendous. We'll let that load. I was laughing when I was doing this earlier because I kept getting ads for like recent for like shit that's around me. It's like, oh, in your city. I'm like, dude, fucking these ads are just gonna fucking DOS me. But when we look at the lap leaders in these events and where they're finishing and stuff, and maybe I'm wrong here, but like Eric Almirola started up front in that race, ran into issues. Keselowski and Buescher were underpriced, and so like they went ahead and fit in there. But Larson, who started 5th, who was a clear guy that people played on, like underperformed, and I mean, with the price in the 2022 race, we can argue that, all the lap leaders worked and stuff. But if we're actually paying up for people, we're looking at situations where 1, 2, 3 worked. LaJoy came out of nowhere. Larson, yet again, a big favorite that people played. Technically didn't lead laps. Yeah, sure, he finished second and he got through the field, but like, maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about in these last 2. I'm thinking maybe the other races. I don't know, man. Bristol's so fucking tricky. I hate this track for a fantasy aspect. All right, so I'll see what you guys are saying. Then we can kind of bounce around and look at value or look at line of construction and stuff like that. With whatever, because like, bro, dude, I'm even hearing. I'm like, this is my worst fucking track. I have no idea. I've tried to do everything and it just doesn't work out. So Ross and Buescher, single entry. I like Ross. If I'm paying up, trying to chase lap leaders, I don't think I can fit in Buescher. And I've typically only prioritized, and it's been the only part that I kind of correctly land on is just prioritizing one place differential play. And that one will probably be Chastain today and just hoping that he doesn't fucking go a lap down. Let's see. Oh, you're hungover. I'm so sorry. At least you had a good time. Yeah, 2 to 3 lap leaders. I mean, like, it would be. I mean, these guys are the clear favorites. I know Sterling and some other GPP bros or MME bros. Bro, that sounds like an insult. Some other MME guys will probably be overweight on Barry. I am hesitant on that. Not because my Eric Almirola play years ago didn't work out. I mean, like, dude, I don't know. I'm not in the mood to have my lines dead on Barry just right off the bat. Because like, if he truly, what is the outlook for Barry? Like, am I wrong in thinking this? Yet again, practice laps and stuff were in different conditions. People were wild and stuff, but like, brother, man, look how slow this guy is. This guy is slow. I mean, even in good conditions, even in bad, it doesn't matter. This guy was slow. That's concerning. That's bad. That's rough. That's like the second slowest car on speed. Could be the conditions on the track, but like, even like, if you have a good car in bad conditions, as we've seen with the group practice stuff, like, for example, like Hendrick drivers and Joe Gibbs drivers and stuff that we clearly understand entering races that they are going to be top 7 contenders, and they're in the bad practice group or they're in the bad track condition, they're at least usually falling anywhere, just an average speed alone, anywhere from like 13th to 22nd in like bad track conditions and their session they're in. Dude, I mean, I see this and I'm like, yeah, he queued second. I can't play Barry. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm just wrong. Like, it's so like, I'm not gonna play Barry. Let's just go through kind of all these guys and where they're starting and stuff, and we'll just kind of look through just kind of where they follow. Like, Blaney, regardless of the condition he was in, clearly has a fast car. When we look at Hamlin and where he's at, yet again, kind of my argument here of like the conditions that he's in, but he's able to carry speed, especially, later in his practice session and stuff, or when he's out there. When we look at where he's at, Like, this is a situation where you might be like, you just shit talk Barry, and we're not seeing much more out of Hamlin, but we're at least seeing his average speeds, at least show the potential. Like, this is like alarm bells. Like, something is clearly off here. Whereas we've seen this time and time again from cars that we understand will have speed in this race. When we look at Logano, like, if I was entering lines, I would probably still be wrong here, but like, I would want to play Logano. Like, Logano is a guy, to me, that seems like I'd kind of want to focus on, especially if I'm not playing Blaney and Hamlin together. Like, I like Logano today. I like Larson today. I like Bell today. I like Byron today. Those are guys that I would personally want to play with Blaney. Because I think secondly, we typically see here that ownership is usually spread out. So ownership isn't necessarily the major reason why I would consider that stuff. But yet again, it's like, I can't be any worse. Like, fuck. I think I'm going to play Logano in one of my lines. I like what I'm seeing out of Logano. I like the speed that he's actually able to hold. I'm seeing a lot of things I like from Logano personally. And yet again, and this is acknowledging that the practice data was in drastically different conditions, and everything like that. So let's go ahead and continue looking through here. All right, what you guys are saying and stuff. Yeah, Pete. Yeah, oh yeah, bro. Like, as soon as this show is over, I'm going to watch Counter-Strike for the rest of the day. I don't even do DFS for best of ones or anything, but like, I'm just going to watch Counter-Strike. Like, I'm more interested in that than this fucking Bristol race. Majestic Roads, yeah. And Sterling, I did mention your show in the Discord and stuff. So Sterling SRT, I know you did it a bit last year for NFL, but like, you're also doing live shows, and Sterling has won a lot of stuff. I mean, hell, last week he finished 4th in the main GPP for $5,000 on top of all the other spots he finished in. Cause I do believe you always 150 max. And so like, that's just refreshing to hear, somebody who typically hadn't done live shows and stuff before, kind of just talking about your stuff. And so like, yeah, like Majeski, that fucking sucked, man. Did that just burst it for me? I don't know. And then Sanchez, like, what is Friesen mad about? You fence the guy. What are you doing? Friesen? Good Lord. Yeah. Resin was reapplied. So like, I think that makes the race more unpredictable and worse, which yet again, from a watching perspective, going to be more interesting. We don't know who's going to win. From DFS perspective, just frustrating because we don't know who is going to like get off the resin first, or like what happens when we saw it with Sanchez yesterday and Connor Jones, right off the bat in the race. I'm trying to think of who else it was, but like, they caught the patch in 4 and like nearly looped in front of the field on like lap 2. What happens when Blaney throws it into 3 and 4 on lap 1? The bottom gets loose, goes up the track, and then Barry takes the lead. Like, it's just not one of them, man. Haley or Gillen, that's gonna, the Haley and Gillen question. Let me look real fast. I would play Haley in that situation. Also, yeah, so secondly, another thing that we have to think of is we can go ahead and make another sheet really fast here, because this is what is another thing that's very interesting today. Is I typically don't like looking at slates like this, or like starting off. Like, I never go down the slate looking at salary, but in terms of line construction, being aware of where people are landing, yet again, if you're paying up for a lot of people, you're punting regardless of what you want to do. Okay. And so like in the punt range, you have Gillen starting 24th, you have Zane Smith and Hemrick starting 16th and 20th. Okay. For me personally, and this will at least explain why I'm not necessarily on these guys. Like Hemrick, for example, I have him finishing 19th today. That's 25 point. Actually, that's 25 points because I'm giving some fast laps. That's 25 points at 5.4, so just under value. I'm giving Zane Smith 25 points. I actually have Zane Smith and Daniel Hemrick projected for the exact same amount of DraftKings points, and that's with Zane Smith finishing 17th, and that's with Daniel Hemrick finishing 19th. Now, it's not even a case of that. If either of those guys loses more than 2 positions, well, then they're just not going to work. They'll be outscored by Haley and Gralla by not doing anything. Like the Rick Ware boys can literally not do anything. And I mean, you guys already know how this works. Like I haven't explained like toddlers or anything, but like for me, building, even if I was doing a lot, I don't see the risk and I don't view that as a positive EV play by taking the unnecessary risk of playing Zane Smith and Hemrick and Burton. Like, dude, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like, it's not even, does Burton finish in the top 20? Does Burton hold on to 13th like as his floor all day? No, you got to at least give Burton like finishing like 17th, 16th. Like that's a disaster DFS wise. And so in this range here, in my opinion, you remove these guys. Gillen and Hocevar are the other people that you would argue. If you want to play somebody starting up front, you would prefer Gillen over the 3 guys I just mentioned. But this is pretty huge. These $500, it's pretty hard to come by, especially when you're paying up for people. Like that's when it gets really tight. And so for me, these would be the only guys I play in this range. And if I'm paying up for a lot of people, if I'm playing somebody in these ranges, I have to specifically build around them. Like if I want to play Austin Dillon, which, God damn it, last week, bro, man, last overweight on Cindric, and then my pivot play to get different, was fucking Austin Dillon. It's like, not even mad at Dillon, just like didn't even get a chance to see how those lines would have competed, man. That's nuts. And I think in this situation here, a lot of people will probably want to do Dillon as a possible way to get different here. And I think that's a great play. I don't know if I can necessarily get there with how I'm building and stuff. Yet again, like Larson, I mentioned that I like Larson. You have to build with Larson in mind, and you're giving up other favorite lap leaders for that, specifically probably Denny Hamlin and stuff like that. When we're looking at where Logano falls in line, I just happen to keep him here. Like him at 95, like I don't hate it. That's a stand I'd like to take, specifically as a pivot off of Keselowski and or Buescher. Like Logano makes a lot of sense today, just from a construction standpoint. And I think he'd probably be my favorite GPP play. And if I was doing 20, I'd probably have like 6 or 7, 8 lineups with Hamlin. I'd probably be close to like 40, 35% on him. And I would just want to be over the field on Logano and stuff like that. I don't know. Like that's at least how I'm looking through stuff. Let's see what else is going on. See that Alex is half an hour late, but luckily you can listen on things at 2x and you'll be fine. Yeah, I didn't even. I'd see. I don't keep up with Valorant at all. I mean, I was Call of Duty League, so that's not really any better than that. Oh, thank you for doing that, Sterling. Project ownership on Barry. I don't know, man. Like we know, that was yesterday was insane. So like yesterday's shows, I know it's the truck series, but there's a lot of discrepancies in how ownership is done. I typically trust what Sheets ends up having. But like yesterday, Kyle, the good old Sabersim was like, man, you know what? Kyle Busch is going to be at like 38, 39% ownership. And then I was like, oh my God, that many people are going to play? Fuck that. I'm not playing 40% Kyle Busch. I'd play him if he was lower. And then he comes in at 22. And so like today with Barry, I mean, I think any ownership on that, like I don't believe his ownership number is even something you should worry about. If you want to play him, just fucking play him. I can't imagine that he's going to be, I mean, he's probably like right around anywhere from probably 7 to 12, I would assume. Like the ownership on Barry isn't not a reason for you to be on him a lot. Like you You should like Barry. If you want to play Barry, you should just play him because you like him, not because of the ownership, because he's going to be so low it doesn't matter. Stuff like that. I think a lot of I have no idea if casuals will play. I don't even know. I don't know. Dude, man, this slate fucking sucks. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the point for this type of stuff, but for Bristol, it's like I can't. How do you even project for this? You got to enter a lot of lines, man. And maybe if I like did use Bristol to diversify stuff and not do my usual aggressive things, I'd have a better time. But man, when I look at the leaderboards at every Bristol race, it's always the guys in parentheses. It'll be like, man, what like you look at who won and like the train of like 3 people who won and then people filling out like the top 25. It'll be like so and so entry 127, so and so entry 76, so and so entry 58. Like it's so rare that you have like the first truly projected line, either highest projected or most likely to win the contest before the race starts, actually finish up top. In some of these events, with how much crap can go on and how, like, yet again, these next gen cars, you like breathe on them wrong and you're breaking toe links and stuff. And so it's not even like, does this guy underperform? Like, it's just a mess. Or like speeding penalties. We've seen that happen before with people who were in the top 10. They get a speeding penalty. They go EOL, so their last car on lead lap in like 13th, but then they go a lap down when the race goes green. And so like, I don't know, man. I suck at these, man. Saints bit. I mean, feel free to chase that if you want it. So hard to play and trust Austin. That is not so. At least for me, as somebody who played him last weekend when he got wrecked, like that's not, man, hard to play him and feel like that isn't an issue. Like none of these people, you should ever have like biases or like man, hard to trust this guy. Like, you know who is hard to fucking trust? Fucking Bubba Wallace, fucking Tyler Reddick. Their pit crews are horrible. I don't let that influence me in playing them, but the same thing applies to them. Like, man, hard to trust the 2311 pit crew guys. Hard to trust those guys. Like that doesn't. It shouldn't be hard to trust or confident or have like any of that type of bias in it at all. Because they'll work out at times. They won't work out at times. Like that just DFS. When we look at NASCAR DFS in general, we have 96 slates. My goal is to try and take down one a year, and I can usually manage to do that bare minimum. So like in terms of hard to trust or whatever, like it's none of that rolls into that. And hopefully we can try and win more, but certainly this year has been fucking horrific so far. So that's how that is. I have no idea what I'll be eating today during the race. Probably a fucking bullet from even wasting my time fucking projecting for this shit. That's probably what I'll be eating. But yeah, so like, I don't know, guys. I like Chastain. Like I'm gonna play Chastain. I want to have Logano in my 3. Outside of those true takes, Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Kaz Grala seem like a great place to start. At that point, we're right at like 7,400 on average. So where are we lining in on? Who can we afford? I would like to try and get to Tyler Reddick in situations like that, but that leaves you at like $5,800. So then you're like stuck with Hocevar. And it's not that I don't like it, but in terms of like trying to get different, we got like 40,000 people in this. We got 40,000 lines in this main contest. We're gonna have probably some duplicated stuff, so we'll probably end up being at probably 32,000 unique lineups or different lineups rather. And so like if I go up to Reddick in that and I land on Hocevar, I don't necessarily like that. I could just bring up DraftKings, but I'll just do it here. So like I have to assume this is where people are gonna want to go with these guys, and then probably a punt. I'll just use Grala for this example here. So like these are the 4 guys in probably like the more popular chalky-ish builds and stuff. So where do you go? You're either playing like Bowman with like Suarez, Bowman and Bubba. You're getting down to like Austin Dillon or somebody who could potentially offer you some type of fucking floor. that isn't just going to murder you if they like get destroyed. If you're going Barry, like it's Barry or bust. If he runs into an issue, that lineup is dead. So like Suarez and Bowman look like they're going to be pretty popular plays, not even regardless of what their projections are, but where a lot of these lines are going to end up building. You know, it's hard to be like, well, just remove Chastain and, you know, you don't have to land on like Bowman and Suarez as much. Well, like Chastain is probably like the guy with the most secured floor today. As I said, he has a floor of like high 30s, low 40s. But realistically, he's probably going to score like 49, 50, 52 points and stuff today. And so, like, this is not a situation or not a place where you'd want to. My phone just went off. I have no idea where it is. Like, Chastain is in the situation where you want to get different. So, you would have to, by default, if you want to be different or play different lines, you have to get different at the lap leader. When you do that, you're most likely getting off of Hamlin first and foremost because he's not starting up front. He doesn't have that early guaranteed lap leading potential, which I would argue isn't really even the case. Like Blaney could fumble the bag, have a bad start to the run. Hamlin will most likely be in second once he gets by Barry. Hamlin could be the early lap leader. And like, so like, I don't know, man. This is in terms of projecting stuff, this is a fucking terrible time. Like this is not fun at all. That's why I'm like, I like Logano as a play to get different. I really do. That's like the only take I have. And I have very little confidence in even that working. How much Blaney in 20 max? Well, you have seen how I have approached the stuff. You know how I normally do. When you look at where I was at with like Eckes and stuff yesterday, dude, I'd be playing like fucking 65, 70% Blaney. The only way you get different with Blaney is go over the field. It's fade or go under. I would not want to be with the field on Blaney. So like, I mean, I'm probably going to play him in all three of my 3 max stuff, all 3 of my lines a day. So I'd be at 100%. If I'd run 20, I'd be at like 60, 65. Like Blaney, I assume he'll come in probably around like, I don't know, anywhere from like 38 to probably like 43. So like you'd be over the field. You'd be like, don't, you know, like 1.5 over the field basically on that. But even still, like even if you fade him, let's use this as like another reason why this is such a difficult race and stuff. So Blaney is projected to be the highest owned guy, regardless of where that falls in line at. It's not going to eclipse 50%. Like we understand that. As I said, he'll probably fall in line. Just rough estimation off my head would probably be between like 38 and 42, 43, somewhere around there. So like, let's say if Blaney fails, he crashes out, whether he leads laps or not. Blaney fails. God, you're still fucking competing with like 55% of the field that don't have Blaney. Okay, so you can fade Blaney and still be wrong and still not cash today because you might not have the correct lap leader who takes over. Like, so it's not like ownership in this race doesn't matter because nobody is owned enough to cause not even, I mean, clearly, like, you know, if Blaney fails, like 40% of the contest is gone, but the contest only pays out like 20% of the people. So, like, no one driver that fails locks in other lines or other teams or other stuff like that. Like, you still have to play there. You still got to get like who's the third, who's the second, who's the potentially fourth lap leader and stuff. And so, you know, answering your question of like, where would you bet in a 20 max or talking about ownership and stuff, like, ownership today is going to be so spread out that it truly doesn't matter. It'll only matter with those individual lines. Like if Blaney works, you know, 40% of the field has him. What else is getting you different as you go down the period and you go down the lineup construction? Like Blaney's optimal, Chastain is optimal. Those lines are building with 4 other places. Well, potentially it's probably going to other, like you have like a potential secondary lap leader. Is that Hamlin? Is that Logano? Is that Larson, Byron, whatever the case may be? Then it breaks down. And so like we're still running into situations where we're probably going to have duplicated lineups in the more chalkier builds and stuff. Whereas if Blaney fails, which, yeah, again, I'm going to play him. If he fails, like, fuck it, whatever. But if Blaney fails, that opens it up much more to different, different lineups. Let me rephrase that. If you're looking to build differently or get different today, I think Blaney is the first spot that you start off with. Because if you're playing Blaney, you should already be like trying to play ugly ass plays with Blaney in general. Like if you're building something like this is the lineup that I would play Barry in. This is the lineup that you would be playing like Austin Dillon in, AJ, Cindric, Briscoe, Bubba Wall. Like if you're building with Hamlin, Blaney, Chastain, you have to have an ugly ass play in there by default. Whereas if you don't play Blaney, then I would be much more open to playing less riskier plays. Which, like, I think that's like common sense. But like as I just speak things through or think of stuff, that's where I'm at. I don't know. Like you could tell, I'm just not interested in this slate at all, man. Let's see. Hocevar is a good play. Yeah, I mean, he's literally the de facto play in this entire range. Like, because you're not playing these guys here. If you're not punting, you're at Hocevar. If you are punting and you need a secondary punt, you're at Hocevar. Like Hocevar is going to be very popular today, regardless of what he ends up scoring. I have him at 23 points. I have him finishing around 28th because I think there's a real likelihood that like he's a potential guy who can get trapped lap down early, and that doesn't necessarily hurt him because he'll be racing against the guys who are one lap down all day. But that's personally where I have Hocevar, and if you need a guy in this range, he is the best play in that. Let's see what else we got. So pit stalls literally don't matter here at Bristol. There's so many good. Let me change that. When we look at Bristol and pit road, the fact that it is so slow, you have 35 mile per hour pit road speed, which is the same at Dover. However, you're in that for such a long period of time. The pit crews, in my opinion, where I'm at, don't have as big of an impact in terms of being fast, okay, because it's such a long pit road and stuff. Whereas like if you run into an issue, you're just fucked anyway, so like that doesn't matter. But like the faster pit crews, in my view, when I've looked at stuff, seem to be like that advantage isn't as big as other tracks. And so like for me, pit stall selection is not a thing I even bother to look at here at Bristol. Yeah, Gibbs to be. I like. I'm probably going to play Gibbs in one of my other three. Everybody knows I like. Literally, he called himself Jesus. How can you not like this kid? Like he's laughing in the face of all Christians everywhere. How could you not like this guy? Ty Gibbs starting 19th. As I said, if you're building in a situation like this, that's where you play a play to get different. Prioritizing Gibbs over somebody like Bowman over somebody like Suarez is a build that I would love. So I like Gibbs. Yeah, Chase. I mean, Chase Elliott, Logano, like it like not even every question. Everybody's like, well, maybe Chase, maybe Logano can do stuff. Like you already know my opinion. I'd like Logano today, but like that can be asked for everybody. So like there's no like true projection, even when you run stuff in sims, like you look at like game theory optimal or guaranteed. I forgot the acronym. I just went blank. GTO. What does GTO stand for in sims? I just went blank. But when you look at that aspect, you'll probably see Logano and Chase Elliott both fall in line between like probably 11 and maybe 16, 17% of the time being optimal, for both. Like, so that's another way you can always look at stuff. Even if you guys don't run sims, if you look at, so ideally ownership should follow the percentage that somebody is optimal, right? It never does, but ideally in a perfect world, that's where it would be at. And when you look at where each of these guys fall in line at, and this is just using my head and stuff. So like you have Blaney, who's probably optimal in like 40% of the races that he runs. If you run this bitch, 10,000 times, it'll be optimal in probably 4,000 of those. Yet again, ownership is probably going to be around 38 to 42%. That's right in line there. We get to Hamlin and stuff, and you start guesstimating. He's going to be slightly lower than Blaney, but probably anywhere from like 39 to 33%. You start looking through everybody, and then you get to people who aren't necessarily being owned, which yet again, that's why they're either like pivots or to get different and stuff like that. But Larson, Byron, Logano, and Chase Elliott, which I don't even know where he is in terms of salary. You look at Chase Elliott, those guys are all probably optimal, 10 to 15% of the time, 10,000 races, 1,500 outcomes of them working out and being optimal and stuff. So ideally you would want to have them in your own ownership around that range. Like that, I don't know. That doesn't answer anything, but that's how you should go through and look at like every single driver and stuff. So like when you look at like Chastain, for example, he's probably second on the list of how often he's most optimal based on his pricing, based on where he's starting. He's probably second right behind Blaney and stuff. Anyway, you just go through that and kind of visualize that for every driver and stuff like that. Yeah, like, Chase Elliott and Logano seem like fantastic plays to me, especially to get different, especially if you don't want to play Hamlin and or Blaney. But I think I would prioritize Blaney over Hamlin. But that's personally how I feel. Gregson, good play. I have no idea where Gregson is starting. No clue. Starting. I mean, he's certainly better than McDowell, Briscoe, and Barry. I have no real opinion on Gregson. I would probably, if I was playing 20, I get to him. I have no interest in trying to build with Gregson right now. Like, if you're laying on him, I completely understand, but I have no real opinion on Gregson and stuff. Assuming you are building 3 Dom lines, and we got to stop using that term, man. That's such an archaic term. I would break it down in more so expensive stuff. I'm going to try and I'm going to probably pay up for probably 2 guys over 10K in every single line I play today. But like Logano, projected wise, he's not a dominator. He's not a lap leader. Like I'm higher on him, and I have Logano projected for 41 laps led today and 23 fast laps. And the 41 laps led might not even happen. If he just maintains his position in fourth, gets his 23 fast laps today, I mean, he's barely hitting value. He's like, that's a 5.3x, he's not projected to be a lap leader and stuff, but he's certainly on the fringe of that. He's certainly like as like a tertiary lap leader interest and stuff. So like, I don't know. I personally, for me, I don't like using the term dominator and stuff. I just say lap. I just break them down and like, who do I have projected to potentially lead laps led and get fast laps? Like the domination factor of being up front or leading does not influence that. It's just where these guys are in terms of speed. I don't know. That's where I'm at. 114 you guys here. I do appreciate you being here on this Sunday morning. I do apologize that Sheets isn't here, but he is busy and stuff. And then where are we at next week? Oh my God, we're at Coda. Fuck. Oh man. Like Coda's the opposite, man. The road courses, we tend to see guys who like people who have good projections, even the sites have good projections, good sims. It's very easy to project for road courses and sim for them. So like I guess next week I'll just be playing 20 lines and say fuck it, I'll just tie with people. I don't care. Whereas this week is like there's question marks on everybody. I just want to get back to real. I hate that I got to wait till like April and May to get back to 1.5. That sucks, man. Yeah, we get stage break. There's so much stupid shit, man. Like, it sucks. This is how NASCAR DFS opens, because like March is like my worst month. It's always at the start. Oh boy. Can I look at Chastain laps? Yeah, sure. We'll look at this. we'll look at his laps. So yet again, he was in a. I don't recall. Haven't bothered to look at the. That's the wrong shortcut. Haven't bothered looking at his group he was in. So across the board averages, he's the fastest when I just look at laps above 115, and we see so realistically, this is lap 1, this is lap 2, this is lap 3, this is lap 4, this is lap 5, lap 6. Just by how you scrape, by how NASCAR does their stuff, it seems like we're either missing a lap or not. But so ideally, like he's his own individual fall off, which I'm not looking at him based on this average speed. I'm looking at him based on what is his actual fall off on his own particular laps. And I believe Group A was identified as the better group. I think a lot of people were upset with Group B, if I remember correctly. So, like, technically fastest car in the fastest group, over elevating him as the best car. You got to get him up and down. Realistically, he could probably fall anywhere between like 7 and 13 and stuff. But his fall off is what is good to see. Even if you're slow, you could still have like not bad fall off. Like when we're looking at William Byron, I'm not saying he's fast or slow, but we're seeing that his lap times are pretty similar. And yet again, they could be in traffic and stuff, but like at the start of his thing, we clearly see fall off. But at the end of his stuff, he's running like basically identical lap times. If he's not being influenced by a lap car or somebody in his way, like this 113 off the line, he's lifting in pit lane, same, basically identical lap, fast lap here. But like that's more so how I view practice laps, especially when the groups are so drastically different. Yeah, he has very, very little fall off. So like Chastain, is a great play. Just does he get trapped lap down? Like, so that's a Chastain. That's the Chastain stuff since he was asked about. I really think that's about it. Man, I was here for 55 minutes just rambling. I feel like I didn't say a damn thing. I personally hate Bristol because I suck at it. It is the most difficult races to project for, build lineups for. You typically see guys who are really, really good at NASCAR DFS do well here. And that is where I certainly get knocked down and separated because I have just been horrific. I would lean into variance more at races like this. Yet again, it has not worked out for me. So maybe don't do that. But I like being overweight on people or drivers that the field isn't on in a race like this, to where Blaney could very easily run into issues. Hamlin might not even be the secondary lap leader. Like a lot of things. Like, as I said, I haven't even mentioned or even talked about like who would be capable of leading laps that are starting from 13th to here. Like Bell could show up and kill the field stage 3. Reddick could show up and kill the field in stage 3. Like you can't realistically project that. You can't have an idea of what's going to happen on lap 427 of this race, as we've seen in situations where people come through and race lately, especially with how much this track is going to change. I think if I will say, if you have the best car in at the beginning of the race, you will not have the best car at the end of the race. Blaney has a real chance of having the fastest car for the first 150 laps and finish 7th in this race. Like, that's just how it is. Priest, Dinger, Hocevar, last guy in. Let's realistically look at this. So, Priest, I'm at 24.35 points. Hocevar at 23.35 points. That's what I have him projected for. Hocevar probably has a higher floor and a higher ceiling. AJ Allmendinger, I have him projected for 24.9 points. So, realistically, I have all those guys within 1 point of each other. I would play Hocevar in that. I don't think that we need to take the risk of playing Priest. Maybe Priest does well. Like, whatever. Let's be fucking wrong. But I don't think you need to take the unnecessary risk in the 5K range of being wrong there. I'd much rather be wrong in like the 7K, 8K range, 9K range, or lap leader range. In the value range, I would just want to play the safest guy, who is Hocevar, and not really worry about it. Like if you build a killer line, which I have done this before, and this isn't like, this might be bad advice, but whenever I've tried to get different at the value range, I've had far more regret on lineups that if I just played the more popular value play, I would have had the optimal. I tried to get too cute, too different, and just fucking missed out on it. And so like I really don't get different in the value range anymore for me, as I have found that has been a an error in my own play. I do that too much, and so like for me, I would mainly take the safer play of just Hocevar there. Hocevar probably crashed. Yeah, no shit, man. I can't wait for fucking Chastain to be involved in the wreck that like John Nemechek, spins out of 4 on lap 7, slides down the track, comes back up into 1 and cleans out Chastain. Like, then I can truly just go watch Counter-Strike and I can catch up on this race on Monday. Yeah. Yeah, like Trucks last night was like Nicholas had issue on pit road. Nick Sanchez had the 3rd best car, scraping on fast laps all day. Either one of Eckes or Kyle Busch runs an issue on pit lane or whatever. Sanchez is there. He has 1 issue on pit lane, starts in the back of the field, and then just gets caught up in a wreck. That's unfortunate. So same thing with like Ben Rhodes, Ty Majeski, guys who are running up there all day, who were contending for top 5, get taken out, and then you have people who were basically on track to finish, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, finishing, inside the top 10 and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I don't know what Friesen's mad about. I don't know what Friesen's mad about. Like, you have mirrors, bud. You have a spotter. Sanchez didn't do anything. I don't know. Past that, best of luck today, guys. We'll talk about Coda. At least I'm pretty sure we're at Coda next weekend. I don't know. My advice: don't play a lot for Bristol, man. Fuck me. I hate this. I hate this track for DFS. And Godspeed to you guys. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here.